the second influential power over our happiness, external power, is career. And this is because career is often what we spend most of our daylight hours doing. And so it's important for your happiness that you enjoy your career. And so this is where the topic of money comes in. So before we go deeper into this topic of money, I would like you to just take 1 minute and think about the single word which is the reason for why you want to make money. So just stop right now and think about, what is one word that defines why do I want to make money? Do you have your word? Great. So keep that in mind when we're discussing the topic of money and career in this video. So I unfortunately can't ask you what your personal word was, but often when doing this practice, the words that come up most frequently are that people want to make money for are stability, comfort, and freedom. And that last one, freedom, is especially relevant for millennials and Gen Y and Gen Zers. And so it's funny because often people in the millennial demographic want to make a lot of money so they can have a lot of freedom. But in that pursuit of money, they end up being a slave to making money. And so it's quite ironic that in the pursuit of freedom, they end up being a slave to that pursuit. So don't fall into the category of being a slave to make money. It should be the other way around. Money should be able to provide you the freedoms that you want. And you don't necessarily need to make a lot more than that. So think about why you want to make money and think about how much money that would require. And any excess amount of money is actually superfluous, meaning unnecessary. So they actually did a study on this. They did a study on the relationship of money and happiness. So it turns out there is actually a relationship between money and happiness. So the more money you make, the happier you are. However, the interesting part of this study is that there is a certain point where increasing money does not increase happiness. And there is also a diminishing marginal returns of happiness when it comes to money. And that sounds complicated, but that's just a fancy way of saying that if you make no money and you begin to make a little money, your happiness will increase greatly. But the more money that you make, your happiness will actually increase less and less until making more money doesn't in fact make you any happier at all. And they found that this number is actually $75,000. Give or take about $5,000. Depending on the source you read, it can range from 70 to 80. But at around $75,000, making more money doesn't make you any happier. So why do you need to make yourself a slave to try and make hundreds of thousands of dollars when it won't in fact make you a happier person? So if you're looking for a number of how much money you want to make, just know that that maximum number that will actually make you happier is $75,000, and anything more than that will in fact not make you any happier. Here's another study that proves a similar point. And so this study was done by David Myers, and it is called the American Paradox of Affluence Over Time. So basically, they measured people's happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 in different periods of time. So in 1940, they asked a group of people how happy they were, and the average number was a 7.4 out of 10 on the happiness scale. And then in 2015, they asked a similar group of people how happy they were on a scale of 1 to 10, and the happiness number was a 7.2 out of 10. Now, the interesting part of this study is that Americans are much more affluent now in 2015 than they were in 1940. You know, there's so much more technology and affluence and things that people have in 2015 than they did in 1940. You know, Tempur-Pedic beds and TVs and the internet and smartphones. However, happiness levels did not go up. So this study just proves that we may be accumulating money and affluence and technology, but these actually are not having a positive influence on our overall happiness levels. So now I think is an appropriate time to share another piece of my personal story. So I told you that I'd be sharing different pieces of my personal story about different phases of my life where I was missing one of the pillars of the holistic success model. So this was a period of my life when I was missing the pillar of happiness. So this was my corporate agent or drone phase. So I was on a good career path and had a good job working in San Francisco and had considerable spending power for my age and had a nice apartment overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. But this is when I learned that money really doesn't buy happiness. I had achieved what I had set out to achieve so far from a career perspective, but I did not have the opportunity to pursue my passions, and I didn't particularly like the people that I was surrounding myself with. And I went through a phase where I was very unhappy and even sort of went through an existential crisis where I didn't really know what I wanted. So this eventually came to a head when I quit my job, gave away all my possessions, and moved into a van in New Zealand with my girlfriend at the time. And I was living a very humble life, driving from place to place, sleeping in the van, eating, cooking all of our meals in the van, living on less than $50 a day. However, this was one of the happiest periods of my life. I got to do everything that I love to do, got to surf all the time and spend the entire day outside. And it was a really, really joyful existence. After a while, I began to realize I was seeking more meaning in my life, but we will get to that part of the story in a future workshop. But the point of this story is that money doesn't buy happiness. I really learned how to practice gratitude in this period of my time, and it allowed me to take a break and restore myself from all of the challenges and the stressful work environment that I had put myself through. And so the point of this story is that you don't need a lot to be happy. In fact, you can be happy with a lot less than you would expect. So in order to illustrate this point that you don't need a whole lot in order to be happy, we're going to be going through a minimalism exercise. So right now, I'd like you to envision yourself in a place that you call home, or a place that you want to call home. Envision that all of your basic needs are covered. So you have shelter, that can be living in a tent or in a small cottage. Nothing extravagant, but your basic needs of shelter are covered, and your basic needs of food and water and whatever else you need to survive are already covered. Now, besides those basic needs to survive, I'd like you to write down what 10 items you need in order to thrive and be happy. So think about what are the 10 items that you need in order to complete whatever activities you like to do in order to pursue your career path, but just 10 things that you need in order to thrive in this world. So this can be something like a car in case you need transportation. It can be a musical instrument to pursue that passion. But whatever 10 items you select, and write them down in the worksheet that we've provided. And once you've gotten your 10 items down, you can move on to the next video.